The trade war between the US and Canada is heating up. Can anyone stop this chaos before the economy collapses? In recent days, trade tensions between the United States and Canada have reached a fever pitch marked by a series of retaliatory tariff measures. The Premier of Ontario announced a suspension of the 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the United States. This decision was in response to the President's recent increase in tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel to 25%. The surcharge initially threatened to significantly increase electricity costs for states like Minnesota, Michigan, and New York, raising household energy bills by approximately $100 per month and costing each state $400,000 per day. In response, the President announced plans to double tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum imports from 25% to 50%. The escalation has sparked fears of a potential trade war and its impact on both economies. The announcement led to significant volatility in financial markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell nearly 600 points before closing down 478.23 points, marking a continuation of the decline after a 900-point drop the previous day. The S&P 500 fell by 0.7% and the Nasdaq Composite slightly declined by 0.2%. Investors expressed concern about a potential recession triggered by the escalating trade war with Canada. Amid the rising tension, Premier Ford held a series of talks with U.S. Trade Secretary Howard Lutnick, culminating in what was widely perceived as tangible results. These meetings resulted in Ford's decision to temporarily suspend the electricity surcharge, seen as a gesture of goodwill and a commitment to de-escalating the conflict through constructive dialogue. In response to this move, President Trump rescinded his initial decision to raise tariffs, opting to keep them at the existing 25% level. This dynamic vividly demonstrated the fragility and volatility of trade relations between the two countries, as well as the significant influence of provincial-level decisions in shaping international trade policy. While the U.S.'s 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports officially took effect, affecting not only Canada but also several other countries, Canada did not stand idly by. As a retaliatory measure, Canada imposed mirror 25% tariffs on imports of American products, covering a wide range of goods, including steel, aluminum, computer equipment, sporting goods, and cast iron products, totaling approximately $30 billion. Incoming Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has stated his readiness for open dialogue with U.S. President Donald Trump, emphasizing that any discussions must be based on unconditional respect for Canada's sovereignty. I am ready to meet with President Trump, provided there is full respect for our country's sovereignty and our work towards mutually beneficial trade solutions, Carney stated, outlining the Canadian side's principled position. In light of the situation, Carney emphasized the need to renew the strong economic partnership and security cooperation between Canada and the United States. He expressed hope that through respectful and constructive dialogue, both countries could overcome existing differences and strengthen their long-standing and time-tested alliance. Amid the escalating tensions between the two countries, an unexpected proposal emerged. President Trump suggested that Canada should become the 51st state of the United States. According to him, such a union would eliminate trade disputes and tariff barriers hindering economic cooperation once and for all. However, this idea did not find support from the Canadian leadership. Outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau rejected it, stating that Canada would not become part of the United States under any circumstances. Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre supported this position, emphasizing that Canada would remain a strong, independent, and sovereign country. The annexation proposal sparked outrage among Canadians. According to public opinion polls, the vast majority of citizens, about 90%, opposed joining the U.S. These sentiments led to a surge in national consciousness. Canadians rallied around symbols of national pride, expressing their unwavering commitment to the country's sovereignty and independence. In an era of complex relations between the two North American powers, initiatives to curb Washington's protectionist policies come not only from the Canadian federal government but also from regional authorities. For example, the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, has called on Ottawa to introduce a special tax on American energy coal transported through his province's ports. This move is seen as a direct response to tariff measures imposed by the Donald Trump administration, aiming to counterbalance economic pressure from its southern neighbor. The proposed tax is intended to specifically target American coal transiting through British Columbia. The initiative emphasizes environmental aspects, echoing earlier initiatives by conservatives in the province. Environmental advocates, particularly the organization Dogwood BC, have long raised concerns about the export of American coal through Canadian ports, citing risks to the environment and public health. They argue that American coal companies are using Canadian territory as a loophole to circumvent restrictions on building new export terminals along the U.S. West Coast. In the Fraser River Delta in British Columbia lies a strategically important facility, the Roberts Bank Superport. It houses the West Shore terminals, recognized as the busiest coal export hub in North America. Both Canadian metallurgical coal and American thermal coal pass through its docks, destined for the insatiable Asian markets. Notably, while Canadian coal is subject to provincial taxes designed to reduce carbon emissions, American thermal coal transiting through British Columbia has so far avoided such levies. The export of American coal through Canadian territory has become an integral part of North American coal infrastructure, especially for thermal coal destined for Asia. This phenomenon has been facilitated by environmental policies in the U.S. Pacific Northwest states, which have prompted American coal producers to utilize Canadian port facilities. In 2023, the Port of Vancouver handled an impressive 17.6 million metric tons of thermal coal, solidifying its status as one of the largest export centers for this commodity in North America. The majority of this volume, approximately 11.7 million tons, originated from the United States, primarily from coal-producing regions such as Montana and Wyoming, where the Powder River Basin is a major supplier. The remaining coal comes from Canadian mines located in British Columbia and Alberta. The Port of Vancouver plays a crucial role in supplying thermal coal to Asian markets, where it is primarily used for electricity generation. Key consumers include China, Japan, and South Korea, whose energy systems heavily rely on coal-fired power plants, complementing other energy sources such as natural gas, nuclear power, and renewables. Despite global efforts to transition to cleaner fuels, demand for thermal coal in Asia remains consistently high. This is driven by continued industrial growth, the pursuit of energy security, and seasonal fluctuations in electricity consumption. Coal is transported to the Port of Vancouver via an extensive rail network, with Canadian Pacific Kansas City and BNSF Railway playing key roles in ensuring transportation from the United States. The bulk of export shipments pass through the West Shore terminals at Roberts Bank, Canada's largest coal export facility, capable of handling up to 33 million metric tons per year. Other terminals, such as Neptune bulk terminals, also contribute to exports, handling both metallurgical and thermal coal. In the heart of the Roberts Bank Superport in Delta, British Columbia, lies a giant of the coal industry, West Shore Terminals. It is not just a transit point but the busiest coal export terminal in North America, capable of shipping up to 33 million tons of coal annually. West Shore plays an indispensable role in the Canadian coal export industry, serving as a key link connecting Canadian metallurgical coal and American thermal coal with global markets. From here, coal embarks on a long journey to meet the energy needs of various countries. Operations here never cease. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, West Shore pulsates with activity. Modern equipment, like a circulatory system, ensures the terminal's smooth operation. Automated ship loaders, high-speed conveyors, and a sophisticated dust suppression system all aim to minimize environmental impact. Understanding the concerns of local residents and environmental advocates, West Shore Terminals has invested significantly in infrastructure upgrades. The goal of these investments is not only to maintain high operational efficiency but also to reduce coal dust emissions, which are a source of concern for many. In addition to nationwide measures, a number of Canadian provinces have taken the initiative to develop their own strategies to protect regional economies and industries. In Ontario, the government directed the Liquor Control Board to stop selling alcoholic beverages from the United States, providing another lever of economic influence over American producers. Quebec took a more formalized approach, instructing the Treasury Board to review all government procurement contracts to prioritize local or international suppliers not affiliated with the United States. Parallel to Ontario's decision, the Société d'Alcools du Québec (SAQ) removed all American alcohol from store shelves. These steps were designed to directly affect the interests of American companies benefiting from trade with Quebec while simultaneously strengthening the province's economic independence. Alberta, traditionally oriented towards close economic ties with the United States, initially showed restraint in taking decisive action. However, under the leadership of Premier Danielle Smith, the province revised its approach. Strategic tariffs were approved, targeting American goods that could be successfully replaced by Canadian products or imported from other countries. In addition, the Albertan government initiated discussions on diversifying logistical chains. This initiative aims to reduce dependence on American imports in key sectors of the economy. It is a long-term strategy, marking a fundamental economic shift rather than just a short-term reaction. British Columbia, in turn, chose a more targeted approach. Premier David Eby announced the cessation of alcohol purchases from states governed by Republicans through the provincial liquor distribution branch. This economic measure was intended as a political statement while minimizing potential disruptions to the province's overall trade relations with the United States. In response to escalating trade tensions between Canada and the United States, a number of Canadian provinces have taken coordinated actions to protect the domestic market. Nova Scotia, under the leadership of Premier Tim Houston, doubled tariffs for American vehicles crossing the province and simultaneously ordered the cessation of alcohol sales from the United States through the provincial corporation. Manitoba and Prince Edward Island went even further, imposing a complete ban on the import of American alcohol. Premiers Wab Kinew and Dennis King emphasized that these measures were necessary to protect Canada's economic sovereignty and declared that damage to local businesses as a result of the trade war unleashed by the United States was unacceptable. In Yukon, Premier Ranj Pillai took similar steps, suspending the import of alcohol from the United States and reviewing government contracts with American suppliers. In addition, the Yukon authorities considered introducing tolls for American vehicles but temporarily postponed this decision pending the results of further negotiations. The recent escalation of tariff policies between the United States and Canada casts a shadow over the two countries' long-standing trade ties. As recently as 2024, bilateral trade reached an impressive $773 billion, covering a wide range of products and services. In response to Washington's actions, Ottawa imposed retaliatory duties on American goods totaling approximately $2.7 billion, targeting computers, sporting goods, and iron products. The effect of these measures has been felt by many industries, which have faced supply chain disruptions and rising costs. The U.S. automotive sector, critically dependent on Canadian supplies of steel and aluminum, has been particularly hard hit. The increase in tariffs has led to higher raw material costs, forcing automakers to choose between absorbing the additional costs or passing them on to consumers. The fate of popular models such as the Ford F-150, one of the best-selling vehicles in North America, is at risk as it makes extensive use of aluminum in its construction. Experts estimate that the tariff-driven increase in the price of this metal could add about $400 to the production cost of each F-150. This burden may be offset by raising retail prices or by cutting costs in other areas of production. The economic consequences of trade disputes extend far beyond the automotive industry, affecting a wide range of economic sectors. The imposition of tariffs on Canadian exports and retaliatory measures against American goods have led to tangible changes in the electronics, appliance, and sporting goods industries. Computer equipment, a vital component of cross-border trade, has faced increased import duties, leading to higher costs for retailers and potentially higher prices for consumers. A similar situation is observed in sporting goods, including hockey sticks, bicycles, and exercise equipment. Given that many of these goods are either assembled or contain components manufactured in Canada, American retail chains and distributors are forced to bear additional acquisition costs, which inevitably affects store pricing policies. The potential blocking of American coal exports through British Columbia ports could have serious economic consequences for the U.S. coal industry, especially considering the volume and value of export operations. The average price of U.S. coal exports fluctuates depending on the type of coal and market conditions. For example, in 2022, the United States exported approximately 85.9 million short tons of coal, about 14% of the country's total coal production, to 71 countries. Extrapolating these figures, the approximate value of 11.7 million metric tons, equivalent to about 12.9 million short tons of American energy coal exported through the Port of Vancouver, could be over $1.5 billion annually. If British Columbia decides to block U.S. coal exports, American producers will face significant logistical challenges in maintaining access to Asian markets. The limited number of alternative export terminals on the West Coast with sufficient capacity could lead to a substantial increase in transportation costs, a reduction in export volumes, and, consequently, significant financial losses for American companies. This scenario could lead to mine closures and mass layoffs in regions heavily dependent on the coal mining industry, particularly in Montana and Wyoming. Moreover, a reduction in export revenues could negatively impact the U.S. trade balance, leading to broader economic consequences for the entire country. Retaliatory tariffs imposed by the Canadian government in response to trade measures taken by the United States have already had a noticeable impact on the American economy, affecting businesses and consumers across various sectors. The total value of Canadian tariffs on a wide range of U.S. goods, including steel, aluminum, and various consumer products, reaches $2.6 billion. These measures have increased costs for American exporters, reducing the competitiveness of their products in the Canadian market. As a result, several U.S. companies have experienced decreased sales and market share in Canada, potentially leading to reduced revenues and operational expenses. The impact of tariffs is not limited to manufacturers, it is also felt by ordinary consumers in the United States. Increased costs for American companies inevitably affect the entire supply chain, leading to higher retail prices for a wide variety of goods. The disruption of traditional trade relations creates economic uncertainty, undermining consumer confidence and dampening purchasing activity. Trade disputes between the United States and Canada also contribute to overall instability, causing fluctuations in financial markets and increasing concerns about economic resilience. While the direct impact of tariffs may be concentrated in specific industries, the indirect consequences affect everyone. Slower economic growth and increased inflation become the price to pay for disrupted logistical chains and increased production costs.